You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Exciting news. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode up in Edmond today. Sat outside, so if there's a little bit of background wind, I apologize. It's not a huge deal. It is Oklahoma, and the wind is actually like 5 mile an hour today, so I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, up in Edmond today, sat with Rachel Cannon. Thank you so much for inviting me to the house and to come hang out and share some stories. I guess official welcome back from This is Oklahoma to Oklahoma.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's real nice to come back and see family and hang out, and you know, family can see the little one, and it's much easier to palm off the little one to grandparents and parents than it is to just find a nanny and stuff. I can't imagine nannies in LA are cheap.
Cheap or trustworthy, or
that's very true.
You know, they're busy. They're like watching 3 or 4 families just to be able to make ends meet. So I'm like, am I getting you on the exhausted shift, or did you just wake up?
Oh, amazing. So people can Google you. They know exactly, you know, they can find out the little things about you. You know, you've been on Mad Men, you've been on 2.5 Men. I think Fresh Off the Boat was something. I've seen Mad Men, I've seen 2.5 Men. I have no idea what Fresh Off the Boat is, so I apologize for everyone listening that's like, you don't know what that is. I apologize. I didn't grow up here. It's my bad. But we just had a cool chat about some of the amazing stuff that you've done and been out in LA, you know, for 20 years doing acting and interviewing and all these amazing things that I think a lot of people grow up probably wanting to do. Like, that was the dream, I guess, for our generation back then, and like now the dream is to be a YouTuber and sit in your house and, you know, have millions of views on YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is. But I think, you know, it'd be really interesting that, we know, the stuff that we're going to talk about, just, you know, what it's like going from Oklahoma, especially back then, to LA and Hollywood and doing all this stuff, and you're like, the world is totally different out there. What, you know, so it says on Google, you know, that you're from Tulsa, is that right?
I was born in Tulsa.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did you spend living in Tulsa before you moved?
I think I was there for, you know, 4 or 5 years, and then we ended up moving all over the place. My father was in oil and gas, so we traveled a lot, and then I landed in Yukon when I was in the I want to say 5th or 6th grade. Yeah,
so that's where you probably really grew up, in Yukon rather than, they should change that to be Yukon, not Tulsa then.
They will never let that happen.
I love, when I first came out here, there's this whole like feud of, you know, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and it's like,
it's real.
It is real, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really don't care about it, but it's funny to kind of pick and switch people's buttons and, you know, whatever the term is for that, to kind of irritate people about it. But I don't know why there is. I mean, we both like each other. It's no big deal. I think it's more of a city thing. And if they get Tesla right now, I think we'd all be happy.
Right? I would be happy about that.
That'd be sick, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. My family's, most of my family's in Tulsa. My parents actually moved to Houston after, I guess when I graduated college and left for Los Angeles. They went to Houston, and they've been there for 20 years. So I haven't really come back to Oklahoma a lot in between, because I would go to visit them, or I would go to Tulsa to see my family. So I haven't been back to Oklahoma City in a really long time.
Was it a shock when you first came back?
It was so welcome.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's grown up. It's like a child that's grown up, right? You're like, oh, you've gone through the early phases of being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it was nice to come back and just see all the wonderful changes, because I hadn't been back in so long, and just to see how much, like you said, how much it's grown up and how different it is. I mean, the thunder coming here just changed everything. So it was a very fresh thing to come back to. It's been very nice, and I was ready for it. I was ready for a change. I think, you know, I was in Los Angeles and had a love affair with Los Angeles for 20 years, and if I had not become a mother, I probably would have stayed there forever, because it was about me, and it was easy to live there when it's all about you. But as soon as I had a baby, there's just a new sheriff in town, and everything became about looking at life through the lens of what it would be like for him growing up. And I just really was struggling with finding the way for him to grow up similar to how I grew up in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine just having dogs in LA, let alone having kids. Like, I have 2 dogs, and it's great here. Out in LA, having an apartment and all that stuff would have been miserable.
Well, you have to walk them all the time, and then you're walking across the street, and then there's other like dogs coming, and they're not on leash, and so I got chased down the street with my little puggle by 2 German shepherds because the guy didn't want to put him on a leash, and I was like, I'm totally cool with that if your dogs are under control,
right?
But they're crazy.
Yeah.
So, but that's Los Angeles.
Right. That's
just a little different. You got to be a little tougher there.
Yeah, I think that's probably one thing that was that a struggle early on, I guess, moving out there? Or had you kind of already grown up a little bit and gone through the whole, like, getting rejected for whatever it is you're auditioning, or was it like a real struggle going to LA for the first time?
It was a struggle because I didn't know anybody, but again, it was also something that I was kind of in the mood for. I think going to college, going to high school, I was on the Palm Squad at the University of Oklahoma. I was, had a great internship in the film program. Not that things felt easy, but things felt accessible here. And I was ready for a challenge. And so even though I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles, I was really excited to go out there and be on my own and get my own footing. And so I very naively told my parents when I moved out there, I was like, look, I know I don't have any money and I don't really have a job yet.
Yeah.
But I need you to let me struggle. Like, I need that to be part of my journey. And, 2 months in, I was like, okay, so I've struggled. I'm over that. If you could just put some money in my checking account.
But, I think that's super, at the time, I'm sure that was just normal for everybody. And I don't think people growing up now they won't put themselves through that, right?
Yeah.
They're always like bank of mom and dad, and they always have a credit card, and it's just safe. And for the majority, there's obviously people who still do that, but it's not as normal, I'm sure, as it was to do it then.
It wasn't normal. I did have, so there was one guy that I knew out there, this guy Todd Oney, that I'd gone to college with. And when I moved out there, he was the only person I knew. And so he had told me that I could come out and crash on his couch and, stay with him until I got my own place. And so when I showed up, I literally drove out with my mom, threw my cat in the car, threw, a suitcase full of clothes, and showed up, come strolling in with my mangy little cat in my suitcase. And I was like, great. So this is a long drive. Where's my room? He was like, you're standing in it. Oh, where's your room? You're standing in it. I was like, the hell is this place? That's a studio apartment, which I had never seen before because they don't really have those in Oklahoma City. So I was in one of the roughest neighborhoods in Hollywood, which I didn't know at the time.
Sure.
And my poor mother had to get on a plane and go back to Oklahoma knowing that she was leaving her kid in the grittiest neighborhood, and I was like, how did you do that?
I can't imagine what she was thinking.
I can't either. Once I apologized profusely when I became a parent, because I was like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. That must have been terrifying.
I'm glad my mum couldn't see where I was out here. And it was not that bad, but just even though I was away from home, seeing it is totally different to just over the phone and FaceTime. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm not fine, but I'm okay, kind of thing. But seeing it, and then you're like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. But everyone's like, are you sure?
We were literally, for anybody who knows the landscape of Los Angeles, do you want me to take that down?
Right.
Okay. For anybody who knows the landscape of Los Angeles, we were at Wilcox between Hollywood and Selma. And there are more drugs in that neighborhood than any other part of Hollywood. It is gritty.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that at the time, which was probably really good for me, because I just thought, I'm in Hollywood.
Right.
And I was like,
you just graduated.
It's a little different here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 21 years old,
Yeah.
I had no idea. And so I will say, though, that some of the most fun memories I have was from my first year of being on that struggle bus that I purposely put myself on, because Todd and I would literally have $10 between the two of us. And we were like, okay, so we can go to McDonald's and we can get a burger for like $2. And then we can go to the bar and we can like get a cocktail as long as our bartender's working, because we can just tip him and then he'll make us a drink that we don't have to pay for. Yeah. So like we had it all planned out. And, you know, I got a job, ended up getting a job right away because I went to a bar that this, you know, fun little group of Vietnamese guys came over and were asking me a bunch of questions. And I told him I was looking for a job. And he said, you know, I have an investment banking firm downtown in Century City. Why don't you come and be the office manager? And I was like, okay, great.
Sure.
I have no experience doing that, but sure. And then I got there and it was an international investment banking firm, which means that most of the people calling in where I'm answering the phone don't speak English. And I only spoke English.
Right. From Oklahoma.
Yes, from Oklahoma. And his name was Bing, and he thought that was hilarious, you know, that I would be trying to navigate where to transfer the call, just guessing. But it was a great experience. And he had told me he was so fascinated by, I was the first Oklahoma girl he'd ever met. He was like, I just find you to be a fascinating person. And he asked me what I needed to make to be able to get my own apartment, to get out of where Todd and I were staying. Yeah. And he gave me an advance on my first month's paycheck. I was making more than the president of the company. Which I found out later, because I just said, well, I mean, it would be great if I could make this much. Yeah. And he was like, okay, great. And he just approved it. We became friends for a very long time. He was a wonderful human being, and he politely let me go after I was able to get my apartment and get another job.
What an absolute surprise to meet someone like that. Because that's something that you would probably meet here, right? That's such an Oklahoma thing.
It is.
I think that we all say that. I mean, I'm glad that it happens everywhere else, but at like 21, being out there away from home, that's like the biggest blessing you could have been given.
It also kind of felt like God might have been, you know, like, here, maybe let's just put
just a little help, but
to protect you,
right?
Because that, like I said, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have trying to get a job there. Yeah. I thought, well, I guess if I want to become an actress, I guess I have to become a bartender or a waitress. And so you think going in to get a job as a waitress would be an easy thing. You just go in and apply, but that's not true. The cattle calls are bigger to become a waitress than they are to become an actress. So it's easier to get an acting job than it is to get a job waiting tables there. Isn't it? Yeah. And I ended up waiting tables at P.F. Chang's for a month. It was the worst job I've ever had. Worst. People were so mean. Yeah. And I was just like, this is not how Hal Smith ran things when I waited tables at Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? You people need to learn some manners.
Yeah, I can't imagine that going from, I mean, in the service industry too, where like you are literally their worst enemy if something goes wrong with their plate.
Oh, they're so mean. Yeah, and people are just, you know, throw things at you, they disregard you, they yell about things that are not your fault. They get angry because their Mongolian beef is not, you know, at their table on time. You go home smelling
terrible.
It is just so degrading. And I loved the service industry here. I mean, I grew up working for Hal Smith. I mean, I started my first job as a hostess at Outback Steakhouse, and I ended up opening Red Rock, which is on the lake, and, you know, was an admin there, and, you know, one of the head trainers. And like, I loved the service industry. Yeah. And I went to California, and that kind of ruined it for me. So I'm
not going back.
I quickly realized that that was not going to be what I did on the side of acting. Yeah. And so I started having careers on the side, like things that people would do as a job with a, like with a business card. And I started finding interesting jobs that were flexible and would work from set. Sure. I started logging videos for a red carpet company that I went in as an editor. No editing experience, but got a job as an editor where I would literally watch all the footage that he had recorded of people arriving at red carpet events. And he was the video guy. He had no idea who the people were that he was videotaping.
Sure, just told to video these people showing up. If they look important, video them.
But it was his company. He started it, and he thought, you know, well, instead of just videoing people talking, doing interviews, it would be more interesting if you got them arriving on the red carpet.
Right.
So you have this beautiful footage of them posing for pictures. And so that is what Michael started.
Okay.
But he didn't know who any of the people were. And so I came in and sat in this dark editing room for a year and just built his library by using
time
my
clips or whatever,
weird little
snip this bit,
memory to be like,
yeah.
oh, that person was in, Cocktail with Tom Cruise, and looking that up and like, oh, yep, his name was such and such. So I was able to kind of find things that way. But the gift of that is that by logging his entire library, I also kind of had it all in my head. So I knew what all the clips were and where to find things and what the best shots were. And so I used that to help him call Good Morning America and CNN and MSNBC and all of these places and say, hey, I know you're using this kind of footage now, but if you'd be open to something new, I kind of have a fresh take
something
on that I'd love to send
different to
you
what
a clip.
everybody else has, which is the biggest selling point for them ever.
Yeah. So we turned that into a business where we were literally providing all of that red carpet footage for VH1 and, all of these different shows. And so we started getting calls from DreamWorks and Paramount and MGM and a lot of these companies to do their house crew for red carpet events. And so I'm like, 22, 23 years old, just bright-eyed and, so naive. And I was getting to interview everybody in the business because I was going in as the house crew to cover these events. So I'm not the one asking people what they're wearing. I'm going in and asking for the studio, what do you want to get out for the press release? What are the sound bites that you actually want people to hear? And so I was getting to have these in-depth interviews with the coolest people in the bit, like with all my mentors, all my heroes, the people that I was so fascinated to hear about their experience. And I did that for 4 years.
And talking to them about things that they actually want to talk about, so they open up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Not like, don't ask me this, I don't care, leave me alone.
I never
like
asked,
most people, right?
Absolutely. I never asked them the things.
Yeah.
Which is why they were so accessible and they would come over and talk to me. Even when they
built
wouldn't
that
talk
trust
to
and
anybody
they
else.
knew that they could trust you.
Yeah. And so I got to interview everyone from, I was telling you some of my favorites, Muhammad Ali, which I just got a fist bump from him, but that's more than anybody else on the carpet.
Let's be honest, you were like fist bump Muhammad, and then there's people out there that would cut off a finger to fist bump Muhammad Ali.
I would cut off my arm just to talk to. He is like as good as it gets. So, Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross and, Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise and Kevin Kline was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He was so lovely to talk to. Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep, just all of them.
Is there anyone like that like surprised you with how they were? Like maybe their perception is just to be a complete pain in the ass and not a very nice person, and they were just like the nicest person ever.
I think it's all in who you're having a conversation with. And I think because I was very nice and I wasn't asking them anything that made them defensive, they were all very nice to me. I never had... That's a good question. Now that I think about it, I never had anyone be rude to me. But I also it taught me a lot about the process. It taught me so much. So as an actor who was getting into the business and being interested about, how does this whole side of the business work? Because they didn't teach you that in college.
Right.
And I would see that the PR agents would come in and try and get the press line to talk to their new clients who are these up and coming actors who don't have a ton of experience, or maybe they just have a new show that's coming out. Nobody teaches them how to do the press line. They just throw them in front of the microphones and, they just have to figure it out. And so something that they would do that I thought was so cruel, the interviewers would interview, but they would say, don't roll. So they would just interview. But the person standing on the other side knows that, they don't think that I'm important enough to even roll tape on this. So I'm just standing here talking for nothing. Yeah. And I was always at the front of the line because we were the house crew. And so I would interview all of them. And I was like, if I find out you don't roll, I will have you fired.
Yeah.
So we are going to do this interview and this person is going to get experience. And that kind of became something that I really loved doing, is helping people figure out how to do that for the first time. education has always been a big thing for me, because we don't learn unless somebody is willing to teach us.
Yeah, definitely. And it's finding the ways to, like, you know, I hated maths as a kid because I just didn't enjoy it. But I had a teacher who managed to, like, there was like 3 or 4 of my mates who we could just, like, in the class, we all sat together and we all hated maths. But, like, he managed to find a level that we actually, like, enjoyed being there. And he was a great, and I'm still terrible at maths, but I passed. And we all did. And it was because he knew how to teach and he knew how to be on our level. And that, I think, I mean, I still talk to him today, actually. He's a golfer. I think that's why we probably, you know, got on the same level. But yeah, like, if you find someone that, there's a lot of value in teaching that I think people don't realize, especially with kids who don't like to be taught.
I think
that's
it's crucial.
the superpower, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a superpower.
And I know a lot of people right now have kids, can't wait for their kids to go back to school. They realize the value of teaching.
Oh my gosh. I hope that we go back and the teachers better get more money.
Yeah.
You know, that people better understand how undervalued and underappreciated they truly are.
Yeah. You mentioned you were on the Palm squad, so you went to OU, but you went to Yukon, so you graduated Yukon High School and then went to OU.
Yep.
When, I mean, is acting and, like, dancing, like from literally you can walk, or is it like, oh, I'm going to try this and just kind of give it a go and you were naturally good at it?
I had my first ballet recital when I was 3.
So it was
And it lit me up from the inside out.
Yeah.
The other kids that get up there and just cry on the stage because they, you know, are so nervous.
Yeah, mum's like, do this. You're going to put these pointy shoes on. You're not going to like your toenails for the rest of your life. You're going to be doing this.
This is what you're going to do. I, with my fat little belly, put on my, you know, little tutu, and I went out there, and it was like the best day of my life. I loved it.
Full black swan.
Just full black swan. Yeah, I loved it. I was like, this is it. And I traded in 8th grade, I traded in my toe shoes, my point shoes, for a cheerleading skirt.
Yeah.
There's part of me that regrets that.
Yeah.
I mean, my feet are good.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I got out before my toes got ugly, but ballet is just like such a beautiful art form. And part of me regrets letting that go. But I did get to do cheerleading, and I met some of my best friends. There's still some of my best friends today on that 8th grade cheerleading squad, because we were on the same squad all through high school.
Oh, that's really cool.
And when I was in Los Angeles, we would do cheer reunions where they would come out and visit me.
Yeah.
And they'd all, you know, crash into my 1-bedroom apartment. And I was like, I mean, if you can find a spot on the floor to sleep, it's yours. You can stay for free.
Yeah.
But, you know, they came to my wedding, and, you know, it was nice to come back. Some of the
best friends you have,
Best friends I have for life,
That's some of the, like, having a team and growing up, or just in a group and doing the same sport. I kind of have a similar thing with golf. Like, I have 12 people, I think, 13 people in a group text from back home, and we all grew up playing golf together from, like, age 8 to now, and we're all, like, I'm the youngest at 29.
Brothers.
And, you know, and it's nothing's changed. Every time I go home, like, we're still the same group of idiots that grew up playing golf at age 8, but we're still now, you know, we're growing up and competing with a group like that. It's hard to explain to people unless you've done it, right? Because the friendship, the bond, and just the relationship that you have is totally different to just having an individual sport and playing with people, as rather than, like, for the same team, you know?
Yeah, it is irreplaceable. I'm very grateful to, I mean, I don't feel like I did, I guess cheerleading is a sport, you know, I feel like we cheered for all the sports, but, you know, you
get a scholarship for it. It's considered a sport, right?
That is true. The scholarship needs to be reevaluated.
I wonder what it is right now for some people.
Oh, it was a joke.
Yeah.
But, I mean, going to college, so acting wasn't part of the plan, to answer your question.
Sure.
Like, it wasn't something that I grew up thinking, I want to be on TV or I want to be in the movies. It was more that I loved performance. And I felt like that was an extension of that.
Sure.
So doing cheerleading in high school, I remember going to college at the University of Oklahoma and auditioning for the Palm Squad. In case people don't understand what that experience is like, I'm sure, like, football in Oklahoma was probably interesting for you when you first came over from the UK.
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, I had to be.
Did they have something similar to that?
Rugby is big in the UK. Okay. Rugby and football, real football, soccer is big in the UK.
Okay, so it would be the same as, like, college. I mean,
pretty
college
much,
football is just crazy
It's
here.
its own animal out here. Like we have nothing compared to that back home. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not even like. I mean, some of the college teams out here generate more money and get more crowds to some of the professional teams back home.
It's amazing. Yeah. So I, from this tiny little town, went to OU and wanted to audition for the Pom Squad, and they have you put on these tiny little biker shorts and this itty bitty little sports bra, and then you have to go out in the gym. And you have to do this dance that has been designed for no human to be able to actually get through it and survive it. So it is the hardest dance I've ever done in my entire life. And it feels like it is sped up. Like the music is not, like it
just doesn't make sense.
You're not capable of doing it. And then they invite in all the athletes, all the fraternity guys,
they make it as hard as they can make it for you.
So the stands are just full of all the guys that you're about to go to college with.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting there, and it's like whoever gets the loudest cheers, that's who gets to be on the Pom Squad, because that's what matters. Because
is it still that way?
Dance well. I don't know.
No.
But that's how it was then. And there were, very few open spots available. And so the fact that I got on, I was on the JV squad, and the fact that I got a spot just felt like,
one of the biggest achievements of your life up until that point.
Yeah, wow, how did that happen? And so I feel like going through college and having that experience of being able to cheer at all the games, and you got to meet everybody because you cheered for everything. You got to travel with the team. You got to be in the athletic department, programs with, you just were considered part of that.
Yeah,
that
you're part of
beast.
the traveling entity that goes to away games, and I can't imagine some of the away games must have been horrific.
Oh, it was crazy.
Right.
But the worst game that we ever had, I remember walking onto that football field for the first game and looking up, and it's just a sea of red. There's so many people in that stadium, and you're down there on the floor. It was exhilarating. Like, it was so much fun. The hardest one, we had a Nebraska game where people were throwing things at us.
Yeah.
It was so aggressive that to this day, I'm like, Nebraska.
Well, there must have been days there were football season in the fall, like you're going to get especially at the beginning, there's some days it's like over 100 degrees and you're out there with no air moving in the stadium.
Yeah. Or the opposite.
Or the opposite,
of that.
it's freezing cold in November. Yeah.
Freezing cold. And we're like, pantyhose are really not going to cut it right now. Like, I feel like I'm getting hypothermia. Like, everything is turning blue, and I
can't feel my feet.
Yeah, like I'm chipping my teeth. I'm shaking so. But you can't like put pants on.
Yeah,
that doesn't
people
look
would
right.
consider that un-American for you to put pants on as a cheerleader.
You're
right?
ripped out of college.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful experience. I did it for 2 years, and then I actually quit because I wanted to get an education, and I felt like all I was doing was working out and cheering. So that was very hard for me, but I stepped down from that, and I feel like as soon as I did, I started to really evaluate the classes that I was in, and I was a communications major at the time, and I just wasn't digging it.
Was it more of like every athlete does the communication because it's quite and I say this like in air quotes, quite an easy compared to some of the other degrees, and you can most athletes who aren't going to go into real 9-to-5 jobs do communications just because it's a piece of paper to say I graduated.
It's what I was advised to do.
Right. Yeah.
And I was so bored.
Yeah.
Because most people don't know this, especially if you watch 2.5 Men. I'm actually smart. Don't tell anybody, or I'll never work again.
Right. Made a living pretending that you were the dumb blonde, right?
Yes.
The cliche, like dumb, good-looking blonde, right? Like that's the marketing angle.
Yeah.
Like, and I have a degree. Like, I actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have other businesses.
But like Chuck Lorre from 2.5 Men said, you have to be incredibly bright to play dumb.
Yeah.
Because you have to be in on the joke. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's not true. There are plenty of girls who go out and play dumb blondes, and
they're very successful
it's really
at
difficult
it.
to have a conversation with those people because they really are just at that level.
Yeah.
But so I went, I left the communications program, and I was trying to figure out what else I was interested in doing, and I had heard about the film program, and I actually switched my major to, not knowing much about the program, to the critical analysis of film and television with an emphasis on production.
Yeah, that's a big mouthful compared to communication, isn't it?
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I studied that for the last 2 years, and I loved it.
Yeah. Was there any like who was like the big player at the time in like on the team while you were doing that? I don't want to age you, but I'm just trying to put a perspective on like who the team was at that point.
Well,
like, was OU good at that time as well?
No.
Okay.
Well, we were my last 2 years, but not when I was cheering.
Right, yeah.
So Stoops came my junior year.
Okay.
So we actually became
very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting.
You must have missed it.
Oh, I mean, it was so difficult.
Why weren't you here 2 years ago?
Yeah, because as soon as I stepped down, you know, tossed my skirt back over there, you know, we became like a championship team. So it was exciting to be a part of that. I think because I was enjoying my education so much and being able to learn and be challenged in a different way, I was actually okay with that. But yeah, we were terrible in football.
I can't imagine trying to cheer when you suck. Like that's the hard thing to do, isn't it? Because when you're winning, everyone's buzzing and it's great. But like when you've got to try and Oklahoma crowds are terrible compared to back home. Like just the atmosphere and like the general like singing and like, and if people listening, you're like, well, no, we're some of the best. And go to a soccer match back home, and you will understand. And in rugby games, everyone just sings like hymns for the rest of the game. It's amazing. But out here, like if it's going bad, like nobody says a word. The entire stadium's silent.
Oh, because they're just
and I'm like, the first time I went to a game, I'm like, what is wrong with people?
They take it personally.
And they come out and they'll do like, I mean, OSU does Orange Power, and that's about it. And you're like, come on, Bullet finally comes out. And it was like, way about time. Like we may have scored something. So I can't imagine what it's like being on the stadium when you have 80,000 fans like grumpy at the team, and you are part of that team.
Maybe I'm naive. I feel like yes, that was part of it, but it also was so much fun to be out there and dancing and the band playing, and you know, there's just such a palpable energy that you get to be a part of when you're down there that
didn't really matter.
Win or lose, I was still having the time of my life. Like I didn't care. But I will say the women's volleyball team tried to spike a couple of balls and hit us. You know, they were a little ornery. But you know, basketball games were fun. Rinzai Stone was, you know, one of the players at the time who has become a friend now that I'm back, and that's kind of funny to see us both grown up.
So you know, you make the switch in school. You go into this degree that's completely different to just doing communications, and really into like, you know, you're actually really into it. What are you thinking? Like, how early on do you think I'm going to do this as a profession and I'm going to LA?
Immediately. I then knew that's what I wanted to do. Okay. And I had seen an interview with Matthew McConaughey on Oprah where he had said that he dropped out of law school to pursue acting.
Yeah.
And that it was the best decision he ever made. And there was something about that, like hearing that it's almost like it gave me permission.
Especially in his voice.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can say anything.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was just like,
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Is that something that I could do?
Yeah.
Like, do I have permission to want to do something like that? I don't know anybody in.
Yeah. Which now that would be the
industry.
equivalent of I'm going to give up going to university to become a YouTuber.
Right.
Like that's the equivalent
and I
now.
can't imagine my parents being okay with that.
Yeah. Or like I'm going to play video games and I'm going to become a Fortnite superstar. And I mean, the guy who won World Championship last year, I think was 16 years old.
Insane.
Won over $1 million.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Rock on.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, that was loud. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the turning point for me. And do you need to pull that over?
Yeah, I'm going to slide that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely the turning point for me. And I was in a screenwriting class with Andy Horton, so I got to learn about like how to break a script down as you're creating it. That's where I met Matt Payne. So Matt and I were in screenwriting class together, and then Andy told us about this producer that was coming back from Hollywood after being in Hollywood for a very long time, producing movies like The Godfathers and Apocalypse Now and The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And he was moving back to Oklahoma to raise his family. And I was like, interesting. Do you know where his office is?
Yeah. Can I get that contact information? I may have to write him a letter.
So write him a letter. I went and knocked on his door. I went and knocked on his door and I was like, hi, Gray Frederickson. My name is Rachel Cannon, Rachel Wells at the time. And I'm just wondering if you need an unpaid intern. as you're setting up your office. And I became his first intern, and he showed me how to, do production budgets and how to break down a script, and told me all his stories and let me, look at his Academy Award. And that was my college experience, which I'm sure OU doesn't want to hear, but
that's amazing.
My education came from Gray Frederickson.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the great thing. You have to find a mentor that's in the space that's done it.
Absolutely.
And the key thing there is you have to offer them value, and you doing this for free is extremely valuable to them.
Yeah.
Like,
and then I brought
people
Matt
don't
in.
understand that.
Yeah. I brought Matt in, and the two of us were his first two interns, and we helped him kind of develop his business here. And so it's been fun coming back and seeing him. We got to see him get honored for the inducted into the Hall of Fame, which was a wonderful was
last year, right? He was on last year's
year.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. And that's the thing. I don't think people I didn't know who he was until I saw that Hall of Fame thing, and I look at his bio, and that's probably because I'm not from here, but I assume there's not a lot of people. When I mentioned his name, luckily we're going to sit down and interview him soon. But I mentioned his name to a few people, and they were like, "Who's that?" I'm like, come on. I mean, if I now know who he is, I think that everyone should know, right? Play that I've known forever, but. Just the stuff that he's done and the stuff that he continues to do, and everyone that's been around him says that. I mean, he's in his 80s, right? And he's still switched on.
Yeah. Yeah. He is very, very, very dedicated to the next generation of filmmakers.
Yeah. So fast forward, then you're out to LA. You're living in this crazy apartment, with a mate, and got a job, and everything's seems to be going well, but you're not acting, right? You're you got a job, everything's okay, but that's not why you're here.
Right.
So, do you have to sign up with an agency, and then they just an agent and all the rest of it? Because my view of Hollywood, I love Entourage, right? So my view of Hollywood is Entourage through and through, and I'm like, Ari Gold is hilarious, but that's not how it is, Turtle and all the rest of it.
It actually is very much how it is.
Is it very close to it? Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that.
It's pretty accurate. There are exceptions, but that is quite spot on. I had done a casting workshop in Oklahoma right before I left for California. So I already knew I was moving. And I did a casting workshop with Chris Freihofer, who's still teaching acting in Norman. And he had a woman named Joanna Bolden, who was a casting director in Austin, Texas, who had come in to do this workshop. And so she gave us scenes, we prepared them, we did the scenes for her. And I remember after I finished my scene, there was a very emotional scene where I had to cry. And after I finished, she said, "Can you do that again?" I was like, "Sure." So I did it again. Yeah. And after class, she pulled me aside and said, "I'm not going to lie, I wasn't expecting that out of you." I go,
the second time,
that
too.
That doesn't feel like a compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And she gave me a number. She said, "I understand you're moving to Los Angeles. This is the number of an agent that's from Texas that I know well. He'll see you if you use my name. Tell him that he has to sit down and talk to you."
Yeah.
So literally,
which is the golden ticket. Right? You can't get in anywhere without...
It's at least a conversation.
Yeah, because with them giving you your... them saying you have to, use my name and this will at least get you in the door,
Yeah.
I assume Hollywood is connection-based like anywhere else. Probably even more connection-based than any other places that we know of.
There are more talented actors that can't get that first break. That will never break into the industry.
Yeah, because they've done something that to somebody that's related to somebody, and they've done, they
just don't have anyone to call. Yeah. They don't have any connections, and they will never get a break because they don't have that. Yeah. And they are the most extraordinarily talented people you will ever see.
Yeah.
And they just haven't gotten a break.
So sad.
So sad.
Yeah.
So I actually called, his name was Todd Justice, and I actually called Todd the first week I got there. So I was moving myself into into that
straight
as
away.
I was trying to figure out, how to eat and where to live and all of that stuff. But so Todd took a meeting with me, and I remember him telling me that I was so incredibly green that he was like, "I don't even know what to do with you. You're so green." I was like, "Green? What does that even mean? Is that a compliment?"
Yeah.
No. So he took a meeting with me, and he was like, "Look, you don't have any credits. You don't have your weird student films from OU don't count. Don't ever show those to anybody.
Yeah.
You don't have any credits. You're not in the union. You're not this. You're not that. I can't do anything with you yet." He goes, I'm going to give you a list of things to do. And if you can do these, then we can have a second conversation. I was like, fantastic. I love a good list.
Yeah, at least a roadmap to
Give
get
it to
back.
me.
Yeah.
So he wrote out, there were like 10 things on the list, and it ranged from get your SAG card, which, like, knowing how hard that is, the fact that he put that on the list was just rude.
Yeah. What is that? What is that?
It's a union card.
Okay.
So,
sure.
Again, there are so many people that they spend years in, like a lifetime trying to get a union card and they can't. But I did get lucky with that. So told me to get my union card, get in an acting class, get in an improv class, get new headshots because mine were dreadful. Burn
Curly hair?
I had straight hair.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have curly hair.
I pictured that, like the curly fruit.
No, he was like, oh, those are dreadful. Don't ever show me those again. Burn the suit that you're wearing because don't ever wear that again. Like, he was awful. But
great advice, right? In the worst possible way ever.
Yeah. Like, I loved that he didn't sugarcoat it with me. He was just like, here are all the things that you need to change if you want to work in this industry, and I'm not going to have a conversation with you until you do that. So I left, and 28 days later, I called him back, and I said, hi, Todd, it's Rachel. So I did all those things on that list, and I would love to have a second meeting with you. And he goes, you did everything on that list? And I was like, I did. And I lost 15 pounds because I eat so differently here. There are vegetables.
Yeah.
And he was just like, well, how soon can you get over here? And I was like, weirdly, don't be weirded out, but I'm outside your door. So I could be here now. And we worked together for a really long time.
Yeah.
And he was at my wedding. He's a close friend and will be for my whole life. I always say when I get my first Academy Award, he will definitely be in my speech because I wouldn't have the career that I have without Todd.
Yeah, I'm sure he was impressed. Like 28 days, like a month.
He thought I was a psychopath.
Yeah, he's like
in the best way.
Yeah.
I was like, do you have any more lists for me? He's like, sure. Hang on a second.
And the thing that comes to mind is that scene that I watched on the way up here from 2.5 Men. It's like, you'll call me soon, right? Soon.
Right, soon.
It's hilarious. So what, you got, he's like, yeah, let's work together. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Like, how long does it take you for you to get that first phone call? And like, where are you? How does it feel? I mean, I'm sure it was amazing, but what was that first phone call?
So he just started getting me auditions, and I would go and I would get good feedback, but I wouldn't get the job. And, that went on for a moment. And I'm not a very patient person in terms, like, I'm always looking for the growth opportunity. Yeah. So, okay, if I'm getting this far and I'm not getting this, what can I do to change this situation so that I can get further?
Sure.
And, there was one office that I kept going back to, and she would just be like, you're Scream, you're so funny, but then I wouldn't get the job. And I knew I wasn't getting the job because nobody wanted to be the first person to vouch for you.
Sure.
Nobody wants to give you that first job because then it's like they're responsible if you're terrible. And so...
Which then ruins their reputation.
Right. Then her career's over, all because of me.
Yeah.
And so she, her partner, I never got to the other partner. Like, I wouldn't get past the screening process to get to her. So I only was getting, half the office. So I looked up and I found out who her partner was, and she was doing a casting workshop. So I signed up for that casting workshop so that I could go and meet her partner and let her see my work. And I remember preparing the scene and going in and doing that for her. And she said, Rachel Cannon, where have you been? I was like,
on your doorstep.
I've been in your office
a long time
with your partner. And so anyway, that week, long story short, I came into audition for this show called Cuts, which was on the UPN network. And Unetta Boone was the producer on that. So I got to not only come in for her, but I got to come in and meet the producer and audition for her. And I ended up booking that. Was my first guest starring role. And it was with Shannon Elizabeth from American Pie and Rex. I forget Rex's last name, Rex Simon, I think, who might be doing adult films now or something. But he was great then. Yeah. And Meghan Markle, who's the Duchess, was actually my sidekick on the show. So we got to do that job together, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. Unetta Boone, who's no longer with us, but she was a wonderful producer who, when you could make her laugh, she would like scream and slap the table. She would laugh. She would laugh from the inside out. It was so.
It's not a fake laugh at all. It's like full emotional. Like
Yeah. But it would just make you feel like, you know, you were on top of the world if you made her laugh. And
I just got done. I say got done. I watched Suits many times, and we just finished it for the third, fourth time. I love watching Suits. It's awesome. Show. Harvey Specter is just the best guy ever.
Yeah.
And the actor, and the best actor in that is the guy who plays Lewis, and I can't remember what his name is, but
Patrick Adams.
Yes, he like every time I watch him, like the actor is so good because he goes through all these he plays so many different roles.
Yeah, he's a brilliant actor and a good friend. He's a very good guy. Amanda Scholl is one who kind of stepped in to fill Megan's shoes when she left. She's also a good friend and very talented.
Yeah, it's a good show for sure. Is there any shows that like you auditioned for you didn't get that could have like
millions?
Well, I know, but okay. So is there any out there that like people will know that you'd be like, oh, that guy could have been this person? Like
sure. So the part of the process that I think most people don't know about is there's a testing process. So most of what people have seen in my work is guest starring roles where I come in and I'm a guest on somebody else's show. Sure. And sometimes it's a recurring, which means you do multiple episodes, and then sometimes you are a series regular, which means that you are obligated to be there every day that, that it is open for business. So I actually had several of those where I tested for shows and I actually was the series lead. But then if it doesn't get picked up by the network, there are tons of those that just never see the light of day. So I filmed a bunch of pilots that just haven't been picked up. I think one of the fun ones is, I kind of gotten looped into that 2.5 Men world and got to do Big Bang Theory. And, I was very tightly knit with that group, and I tested for Mike and Molly. So I was up to be Melissa McCarthy's sister. Yeah. So I was the other choice, which Katie's brilliant and definitely should be that. Like, I feel like they looked like they were sisters. But so I was the other blonde, not as bright choice. And it was hilariously fun. So getting to go in the testing process is so fun because I feel like the people that get it are a tight family, but the people who don't get it are also like part of that family too, because you just go through that grueling process together, which is
it's a long process, right?
It is a long process.
And if it doesn't get picked up, it's like, oh, great. But you still get paid for doing your work.
Oh yeah.
But you just don't get paid because it hasn't been picked up. Yeah.
So like one of the shows that I did was a series with Jenny Garth and Sadie Calvano was the daughter. John O'Hurley was the dad. So Jenny and I played cousins. I was supposed to just be her friend, but because we look alike, I've been compared to her since I was in high school when she was on 90210. And I tested to be her, and she actually fought for me, even though they were like, I don't know, you guys look too much alike. Like, that might be a problem. And so I offered to dye my hair. Now I know that I should offer to wear a wig, but at the time I was just like, I can dye my hair, like if we look too much alike. So it was a very long process of the studio deciding what color they wanted my hair. So they had to put on like a red tint and then a brown tint and all of this stuff to figure out exactly what my hair should be. And then they decided, does Jenny want to keep her hair short? If so, then we can have Rachel put extensions in, so hers is long. So they went through this whole process to make us look as different as possible. And then we still, it was so funny because on set when we were doing things, like we would do a scene and then we would both like bust out laughing because I was like, it's kind of weird because it's like looking in the mirror because there's some weird similarities because our personalities are very similar in how we talk. So we had a great time filming that together. And after that, it was probably like a 2-month process. That was for ABC Family. And when it didn't get picked up, which we were all shocked because it seemed like such a sure thing that it was going to happen. And then ABC Family kind of went a different way with a couple of things. And so it didn't end up being on the slate. And so I have black hair, essentially. and it's pilot season. So now I'm wanting to get out and audition for everything else. Well, everybody knows me as a blonde. So my agents are like, we need you to be blonde again, like now.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, well, let's figure that out because I don't know how that process works. So I go back, they take out my extensions. The girl is like dyeing my hair back, but because they had done vegetable dye on my hair, apparently when you put bleach on top of that, it's flammable.
Oh, nice.
So my hair burned off. So I had a forced pixie. So if you see any pictures where my hair was shorter than
that's
yours,
why.
that was not intentional.
Yeah.
But it was very real.
You end up looking like Pink.
It literally burned all my hair off.
Wow.
But that led to a really cool show that I did for MTV called Underemployed, that I got to be this super, can I say bitchy?
Yeah,
I was
of
this super bitchy ad exec. And the only way that I got that is because I walked into the audition with my
With
hair
no hair.
spiked up. Well, I had a little bit, but it was like super short.
Yeah.
But I just, it was all spiked up and, heavy eyeliner and leather pants. And I walked in, they were just like, ooh, who's she?
Yeah.
She's mysterious.
And then you can act on top
Yeah.
of that too. And like, okay, yeah, we don't need to see anybody else. You're
Yeah, they
in.
were like, she's horrible.
Yeah.
And I would have never been considered for that part had I not looked the way that I did.
Yeah.
Because casting doesn't have a ton of, and producers don't have a ton of imagination in terms of what
They
they
just
can
see something
envision
like,
you
oh,
doing.
that's exactly what we want. Yeah.
They're just like, oh no, this is what you are. And they like to put you in a little box.
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up doing comedy for so long. I had to step away from dramas to be able to just specialize in something. And then
Yeah.
once I became known as like a comedy girl, then I got
That's
to
when
do...
the doors started opening.
Yeah.
And you do all the fun stuff. Yeah.
Well, then they want you to bring the comedic relief to the dramas.
Sure.
So like that's why I got Mad Men, because
yeah.
Matthew Weiner thought I was funny. He was like, "Oh, you're sassy and you're mean, and I love it."
It's like I'm like the way you say it. I'm sure is exactly how he said it too,
Yeah.
because that's just how everyone is. But
Yeah, he was like, "It's so funny to watch you like put Don Draper in his place."
Yeah.
Because
not many people did in that show.
no, and I was also probably one of the first girls to not be in bed with Don Draper, but have scenes with Don Draper. So I got to kind of be unimpressed with him, and that
Yeah.
was a turning point in the series, and it was the last season.
Yeah.
So it was fun. But it was actually slated that I was supposed to sleep with him. So he didn't know which way he wanted to go. He was like,
Okay.
either we're going to have you be a love interest and do the last 3 episodes,
Yeah.
or we're going to make this a turning point, and we just haven't decided yet.
Yeah. Which is cool to be that turning point.
It was the best. I'm
Right?
so glad that it went that way.
Yeah, that's really cool. For everyone listening, we are at like 51 minutes. We're going to take a little comfort break. This is going to be part 1. Part 2 will come in a little bit. I just really would like a glass of water right now. So we will come back in a second. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.